Operation Rolling Thunder was one of the most ambitious and intense aerial campaigns in U.S. history. For over 3 years, the skies above Vietnam thundered with the roar of jet engines, bombs, and missiles. But what was intended to break the will of North Vietnam instead became a costly, controversial failure that revealed the limits of American air power. Launched on March 2, 1965, Operation Rolling Thunder lasted until November 2, 1968. It was the largest sustained aerial bombardment conducted by the U.S. Air Force and Navy during the Vietnam War. The idea did not come directly from generals in the field, but from Washington. President Lyndon B. Johnson and his Secretary of Defense, Robert S. McNamara, believed that a carefully measured bombing campaign could pressure North Vietnam into compliance. The goals were ambitious: to boost the morale of South Vietnam's government and people, to persuade North Vietnam to end support for the Viet Cong insurgency, to destroy North Vietnam's industrial and transportation infrastructure, and to prevent the flow of troops and supplies into the South. Johnson's administration feared that a ground invasion of the North would not only cost countless American lives, but could also trigger direct intervention from China or the Soviet Union. Bombing seemed like the safer alternative. The forces involved. Rolling Thunder was carried out under the U.S. Pacific Command, with the Air Force and Navy sharing responsibility. The U.S. Air Force primarily flew missions from air bases in Thailand. The U.S. Navy launched strikes from carriers of the 7th Fleet stationed in the Gulf of Tonkin. However, the two branches often operated under different doctrines, and at times their efforts interfered with one another. In late 1965, to reduce confusion, the theater was divided into 7 operational route packages. The Air Force handled Packs 1, 5, and 6A. The Navy operated in Packs 2, 3, 4, and 6B. Some areas, such as Hanoi, Haiphong, and the Chinese border, were marked as prohibited zones. Although many aircraft flew combat missions, the Republic F-105 Thunderchief bore the brunt of the campaign. This supersonic fighter bomber flew 75% of all Air Force sorties. Loaded with 5 1,000-pound or 6 750-pound bombs, F-105 pilots flew long missions from Thailand, often requiring aerial refueling over Laos. But their effectiveness came at a steep cost. Nearly half of the entire F-105 fleet was destroyed by the end of Rolling Thunder. The F-4 Phantom II soon replaced much of the F-105's role. With its radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrow missiles, it was far better suited for dogfights against North Vietnamese MiGs. The Navy relied heavily on the Douglas A-4 Skyhawk, the workhorse of its carrier-based operations. The older A-1 Skyraider, a propeller-driven aircraft from the Korean War era, also flew missions but was quickly deemed too vulnerable. Later, the Navy introduced the Grumman S-6 Intruder, one of the first all-weather strike aircraft, capable of hitting targets at night or eye. The North Vietnamese response was formidable. Their arsenal included anti-aircraft artillery, thousands of guns, Soviet-made SA-2 Guideline, S-75 Dvina surface-to-air missiles, and interceptors like the MiG-17 and the far more dangerous MiG-21. The SA-2 missiles had already proven their power by shooting down a U-2 spy plane in 1960. By 1965, Soviet instructors and equipment had fortified North Vietnam with hundreds of missile sites. American pilots faced strict rules of engagement. They were often forbidden from attacking missile sites unless fired upon, for fear of killing Soviet advisors. This meant the enemy could prepare their defenses without immediate reprisal. To combat the SAM threat, the Air Force created specialized F-105G Wild Weasel squadrons. These aircraft were designed to locate and destroy radar installations, flying dangerous suppression missions under Operation Iron Hand. Although SAMs accounted for over 100 U.S. aircraft losses, their effectiveness dropped significantly once jamming technology and wild weasel tactics took effect. But anti-aircraft artillery was another matter. With nearly 6,000 guns across the country, low-flying American planes were constantly exposed and flaked down the majority of U.S. aircraft. Despite massive firepower, Rolling Thunder was crippled by political restrictions. President Johnson and his advisors micromanaged target lists, often forbidding strikes on critical infrastructure like ports, airfields, or railways near populated areas. On multiple occasions, bombing pauses were ordered to test whether Hanoi was willing to negotiate peace. Each time, North Vietnam used the pause to repair damage and reinforce its defenses. This cautious strategy, known as gradualism, meant the campaign never reached its full military potential. By the end of the campaign, U.S. aircraft had dropped more than 643,000 tons of bombs on North Vietnam. Yet, the goals were not achieved. The North Vietnamese did not abandon the Viet Cong. Their supply routes, including the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Laos and Cambodia, continued to function. South Vietnamese morale did not improve significantly. The cost to the U.S. was enormous. Thousands of aircraft were lost, and hundreds of pilots were killed or captured. On March 31, 1968, President Johnson announced a partial halt to the bombing. By November 1, the campaign officially ended. Operation Rolling Thunder had lasted 3.5 years, yet it failed to achieve either its political or military objectives. The lesson was stark: air power alone could not compel a determined enemy to give up, especially when hampered by political restrictions. Operation Rolling Thunder remains a powerful example of the limits of strategic bombing. It demonstrated American technological might, but also the resilience of North Vietnam and the heavy price of waging a limited war.